Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks. Jack and Keith weekend playbook. We finish up the first week in August here, and there's a lot to talk about in the NFL, Major League Baseball, even the NBA. And I welcome in my co-host, Boxing Hall of Fame writer and Michael Spink's biographer, Jack Hirsch. Good morning, Jack.
Hey, good morning, Keith. I'd like to start off, a lot on the somber note. Yesterday, Flo Anthony passed away. You always start the show mentioning Michael Spink's biographer. She was Michael Spink's wife. They got married early in the year, but she was Michael Spink's publicist since the 1980s, and she was heavily involved in boxing in various ways. And it was because of Flo Anthony, my book on Michael Spinks, here, Michael Jinx Spinks, I was able to be an authorized biography. I was going to write the book on Michael anyway, but she talked to Michael and they decided it would be a go that they'd work with me on the project. And Flo had been in pretty ill health for a while. It wasn't unexpected, but she was really big back in the days. The gossip columnist for the New York Post, page 6. She was close with all the mega stars, like Michael Jackson, et cetera, et cetera. And, she's a great person, great personality. She'll be missed.
Well, our thoughts and prayers go out to her family, Michael, especially, and the rest of her family and friends, obviously. And she was a big part of your book, too, as you said. So,
I had a whole chapter on the book. So I'm not trying to have any sales in any way, shape, or form by doing this. But, anyone who has the book or gets the book, can read the full chapter on her. But yesterday, like I said, it wasn't unexpected when the news came in. I spoke to her a couple of weeks before, and it was one of these where, the handwriting was in the wall. You always hope for a miracle, but, realistically, I knew, and those close to her knew it was only a matter of time.
And a devastating loss.
Great person, and a person of the highest integrity.
Yeah, devastating loss for Michael, and our thoughts and prayers are with him. And I know she was very influential, as you said, in his life.
Yeah.
So. I guess on a happier note, if you're a Carolina fan or even a Cardinal fan, or I guess a football fan, football's back last night, albeit in the Hall of Fame game, and we only got a couple weeks into spring training, but an entertaining game, I guess. I know a lot of people are getting a little worked up over Carson Beck, who had a big night last night, but all the quarterbacks had a big night. I mean, I would argue Haynes King was as productive as Carson Beck, and so were the guys who came in after these two guys.
But it's the naked eye test, Keith.
Yeah,
I know that you're correct. We shouldn't take too much out of these exhibition games, because you're usually not playing against the first team. And even if you are playing against starting players, they're just sharpening up. It's like a sparring session in boxing. One boxer could get in the ring and look good against a world champion in a sparring session, but it doesn't mean he has world championship potential, even potential to be a good fighter. And that's what these exhibition games are. I mean, the number of players who are just trying to make the team. So obviously they're playing as hard as they can, and they have their best foot forward. But I've been high on Carson Beck. I've gone on record high on Carson Beck, but I'm not completely sold that he's going to be a franchise quarterback. I think he can be one. I really do. And I think he landed in the perfect spot with the Arizona Cardinals, because this year the Cardinals are going to give him a good look. The Cardinals don't have a good team, Keith. They're going to be drafting high next year, and there are going to be a few good quarterbacks coming out of the draft next year. But if Carson Beck plays really well this season, they might come up with a determination that he's their franchise quarterback of the future. Perfect spot for Carson Beck, because if he doesn't convince St. Louis, not St. Louis, the Arizona Cardinals. Wow, the Arizona Cardinals, that he's their quarterback of the future. They're going to draft another QB, and that means Carson Beck is probably going to kick around the league as a backup in the future. So for Carson Beck, there's an urgency, even though he's a rookie, There's an urgency. And Jacoby Brissett has a very short leash. He's probably going to start the season, Jacoby Brissett. But I wouldn't be surprised, Keith, is if as early as the second game of the season, if Jacoby Brissett is struggling, they go right to Carson Beck, and it could be his job the rest of the year.
I'm going to put the brakes on this a little bit for you and for James. I know James was excited watching this game last night. Sonia was out there watching her Carolina Panthers win.
Oh, she made the trip. Yeah,
she did.
Yeah.
She did, and because Luke Coakley's going in the Hall of Fame on Saturday as well. But look, they've had 2 weeks of training camp. Every quarterback. If you're going to get excited about Carson Beck, why wouldn't I get excited about Kendon Slovis, who was 9 out of 10 when he came in to relieve him and had a better rating? Haynes King threw for 2 touchdowns and no interceptions and 180 yards, just like Carson Palmer did.
He's not going to play. Keith, it's the upside. Some players are going to play really well in these exhibition games, and they can fill in a roster spot and maybe win you a game or two during the season. I mean, like Tommy DeVito is a perfect case when he played for the Giants. Giants didn't want to lose him, but the numbers game prohibited the Giants from keeping him. So he wound up being, a New England Patriot. But Tommy DeVito won 3 regular season games for the Giants, but no one thought he was going to be a quarterback of the future. I mean, the guys who have a lot of potential, who are drafted high, they're the guys who are given 1, 2, 3 chances. The rest of them just have to kind of luck out. Like Dak Prescott, for example. Dak Prescott's now one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. He's been that for years. But he was a 4th-round draft selection. The only reason he was given an opportunity was because Tony Romo got hurt. If Romo never got hurt,
nobody knew what they had.
I kind of wonder where Dak Prescott's career would have gone. Chances are eventually he would have started somewhere. You got to feel that. But his progress may have been delayed for 2, 3, 4 more years.
Well, Romo was a little up there in age anyway, but you're right. It would not have happened when it happened for sure. He would have played a couple more years. I just can't get I know Carson Beck. I've watched, and Rick Sherlock, who was not with us today, big Georgia fan. I know he saw him play a lot of Georgia. He's a Georgia fan. I watched every snap he played last year. He'll have great moments, and he'll have some really bad moments. He's Jay Cutler, basically, is what he is.
Well, Coach LaFleur there's trying to kind of reel in Carson Beck, because Carson Beck shows moments of brilliance, okay? And then Carson Beck is going to be very erratic. He's going to make some very terrible throws as well. They're trying to make him less mistake-prone, which is a hard thing to do, because when you inhibit certain quarterbacks, it changes everything. Look, the game of football has changed since the time Brett Favre played, for example.
For sure.
Brett Favre obviously could be a great quarterback in the NFL if he were playing today. But Brett Favre was a gunslinger. You make him more conservative, he's not Brett Favre. Joe Namath wouldn't be Joe Namath. Sometimes it's better to just let quarterbacks make mistakes. I'm going to tell you one of the stats that I think is a little bit overrated, Keith, and you're going to disagree with me, is that on turnovers. Every coach is going to say you're crazy. They're so paranoid about turnovers that they inhibit the offense. And a lot of times those turnovers, it depends where you're turning the ball over.
Agreed.
It depends your position on the field. But that the cold stat itself doesn't tell the whole story.
I agree 100% in the fact that when you turn and where you turn the ball over is the most important thing. The number of turnovers is not important. I'll agree with you there. But again, Brett Favre is a perfect example in that playoff game when he was in Minnesota. That's just a horrible turnover. You can't do that, right?
That was his only mistake of the whole game. He played a great game otherwise.
You just can't do that there. And, there's a lot of, and you see that with rookie quarterbacks, and it's not tolerated in today's NFL. You end up on the bench now. We make those types of plays. But again, Carson Beck might be a serviceable quarterback. I've said that for a long time.
Not serviceable. Keith, I'm talking about a good quality quarterback. I'm not talking about serviceable. you're serviceable as a bridge quarterback.
Let's wait till he
basically.
gets a little pressure on him and starts fumbling the football like he did, 8 times or 9 times last year. So again, I got to see more than what I saw. Is all I'm saying. That
Yeah,
people
oh,
are getting too
absolutely.
excited.
And you'll have the opportunity. Carson Beck is going to play a lot this season. There's a big difference between him and a Fernando Mendoza. I actually, even though I'm an advocate for players playing, quarterbacks playing, that's the way they learn. In the case of Fernando Mendoza, I kind of agree with Tom Brady, who's advised the Raiders. Let him learn a little bit behind Kirk Cousins. And I don't mean Cousins should be his mentor. I don't go for this mentor nonsense. Because if you're Kirk Cousins, you never want Mendoza to see the field for the next few years. I mean, let's be honest about it. There's competition, there's rivals. You see last night's game. You see Bryce Young. He looked like the happiest guy on the field when the Carolina quarterbacks were having success.
Well,
but in all actuality, he doesn't want them to have that much success where they take his job away. I mean, which is human nature.
Yeah.
Please, I don't want you to outshine me on this show. I want you to do well. I want the people out there to like your performance, but I don't want you to be so great that you're overshadowing me. Come on.
I can't get enough words in to overshadow you, Jack.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm trying to keep you in the specific role.
I don't think those guys are a real threat to Bryce Young either, at least now.
But certain quarterbacks, they have their job. They don't have a thing to worry about, not a thing. And certain other quarterbacks like Bryce Young, they can't afford to slide a stumble. And Josh Allen can have a mediocre season this year. Guess what? He's going to be the Buffalo Bill quarterback next year. They're going to say, okay, he's a little bit of an off year. Let's get him back to what he was. If Bryce Young takes a step backwards, he's done as the Carolina Panther quarterback, because at some point during the season, they'll replace him. He'll still be on the roster, and then he won't be on the team next year.
Agreed.
Bryce Young cannot afford a backward step. But I love his attitude watching the way he supports his teammates. He was showing me real leadership yesterday in that regard.
I'll give you a hot take out of this game, and it kind of breaks my own rule of don't get too excited. The best quarterback you saw last night going forward, when all is said and done, I'm not saying this year, I'm not saying 5 years. When it's all done, Haynes King will have the best NFL quarterback of all these guys. I like Haynes King a lot.
He runs well. I mean,
today's NFL, his game fits a lot better than Carson Beck's, is my point. So we'll see.
No. The pure passer is always going to fit best. I mean, as long as the pure passer is mobile enough to create plays and buy time.
Yeah.
And I think Carson Beck can do that. He could stay in the pocket, and I think he can buy some time as well. But Carson Beck, he likes to take chances, sometimes throw into tight windows. And look, Carson Beck is going to have some bad games this year. I agree with you. We can't get a little carried away, Keith, but Carson Beck is going to be given a major look by Arizona, and it's going to happen. And it's going to happen early in the season.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with any of that. It isn't like we're talking about him supplanting, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So, again, that's good news. If you're a Cardinal fan, it's good news what he did last night for sure, and what they did, even though they lost. The NFL, that's the only game this week. We get into the full slate of exhibition games next Thursday. We'll kick off with everybody playing next week. But this week,
let's screen for exhibition games, watching them all. Or do you kind of write it off? I'll be honest, exhibition games, they kind of bore me. The game itself, I like to look at individual players if I can.
As I do.
See, who could be maybe getting a roster spot. I might watch a Jet game, and I might say, where did they get this guy from? I might not be familiar with certain guys, and then you find out the guy played Division II football somewhere, and he looked good in a tryout, and he's there for the first exhibition game.
I'm kind of with you. I mean, I don't get overly excited. I watch the Patriots when I can see them because, as you say, you want to see some stories that might be evolving and make sure your guys are staying healthy and whatnot. it's nice to see some football, have it on the background, but I don't pay a lot of attention
You
to it,
know,
quite
it's
frankly.
interesting. I was listening to a sports discussion yesterday about Stephon Diggs. The Commanders signed him a one-year,
Yep.
$12 million deal. And $12 million isn't anything to laugh about, but it's low money for an elite receiver, very low,
Absolutely.
extremely low money. Why he still isn't a New England Patriot? Because reportedly he was a good teammate with the Patriots, but the off-the-field endeavors, even though he may have been innocent, he might be 100% innocent in this latest thing that happened, and no additional charges were filed. Just the overall they said maybe the overall baggage. I don't think it's that.
I don't either.
Think in football, you can only have too many big personalities in the room, and especially the receiver room. You have A.J. Brown and then Romeo Doubs in there. Somehow, personality-wise, I think teams make that judgment call. They primarily do it with quarterbacks like a Tim Tebow. A team wouldn't want a Tim Tebow because of all the extracurricular attention he would be given. They review that as a distraction. Well, Tebow can't play anymore. That's the reason Colin Kaepernick never really found his way back in the NFL, because it was a distraction what was going on with him. They don't want
He also wasn't good enough.
No, he was good enough to get back up. He was good enough. No. He was good enough to hold Colin Kaepernick a roster spot. But
Third
it's
string
not
quarterback.
worth it. If a player's good enough to be a starter, an impact starter, he could do whatever he wants off the field. And
well, that's my point. When I say he wasn't good enough.
Look, Aaron Rodgers. He goes, Aaron Rodgers is a lightning rod. The other day he goes on the Pat McAfee show and he makes a remark, with Dr. Fauci. I'm not judging whether he's right or wrong. No opinion on that I'm giving. And I don't want anyone to start giving opinions whether he's right or wrong. And don't post anyone's opinion on that. That's not what it's about. The point is, now the reporters are all asking Rodgers about it. They were asking Mike McCarthy, the head coach, about it. And what's Mike McCarthy supposed to say? He's not going to say, I agree with Aaron or I disagree with Aaron. It would only bring him grief to take a position. So Mike McCarthy saying, well, he's a grown man. We tell our players they're entitled to their opinions. But the idea, it's an uncomfortable situation, Keith. You're putting a team and other players in. And look what happened with Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart. Abdul Carter makes the remark, those are distractions, but Abdul Carter is a good enough player, okay, where, you put up with something like that.
I agree on Aaron Rodgers, by the way, because it is a distraction. Nobody cares what Aaron Rodgers thinks about this. I don't care. Nobody cares. I think he's only trying to cover up his own disingenuity. Is that a word?
Wait, but there you go. The distraction. You're kind of criticizing Aaron Rodgers now, and then the next person might be backing Aaron Rodgers, and now you have a kind of division, a distraction from football. Well, we're getting a distraction from this sports show because of that. That proves my point.
You brought him up.
No, I'm talking about distractions.
I agree. 100%.
Even though we should be talking sports.
How are we arguing about something we agree on? How are we arguing about something we agree on and you brought up?
Well, I'm sounding like Dick Vitale. Dick Vitale said he got a good prognosis on his, his report. Everyone loves Dick Vitale.
Absolutely, and horrible things he's had to go through, unfortunately, in the last 5-6 years. So we wish Dick the best. Before we run away from football here, and Bob, if you're still there, I saw your Red Sox comment. We'll get to the Red Sox, but
I don't want to talk about the Red Sox. They're playing. They're out of this world. They're in a league of their own. I mean, they win. They win all the time. They do nothing but win now.
Let me finish up on the NFL before we go to Red Sox. There is big news this weekend because we got the Hall of Fame class going in. It's a pretty good class in Drew Brees and Larry Fitzgerald, Roger Craig, Luke Kuechly. Is
It's
that how you
got
say
to
his
be a
name?
pretty good class if they're
Yeah,
Hall
no,
of
there's theory.
Famers. It's got to be good
Not
players.
necessarily. There's some bad players in every Hall of Fame,
There's no
Jack.
bad players in any Hall of Fame.
Sure there
And guys,
is.
they're
Come
not
on.
worthy, but they're
Really?
not
There's no bad
players.
players. I'm sorry. Bad players is the wrong comment. Players who are not deserving of being in the Hall of Fame compared to other
Yeah,
Hall of
well,
Fame.
you've labeled it, and other people on this show, and I know Pax had labeled it years ago. It's sometimes the
All very
Hall of
good.
the very good.
All of the Hall
I
of
mean
Fames have gotten that way.
I hope it doesn't get worse than the Hall of the very good, and it just doesn't become the Hall of the good.
Well, at least baseball, if nobody gets enough votes, nobody gets in. In football, you have to put a minimum number of people in every year. If there's nobody deserving, why does anybody have to go in?
And it's so subjective. Even like to get to go Terrell Davis getting in. He played 7 seasons only, so he was dominant. He was great, but that's a question. But the Hall of Fame, I don't want to say it's going to be tarnished this year, but we talked a moment ago about distractions. And you know what the biggest distraction is going to be? These new Hall of Famers are going to be asked about Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
It's a distraction. Like for years, Major League Baseball, they did such a disservice to all the Hall of Famers getting in by leaving Pete Rose out, because that's all players were asked about was Pete Rose. And Johnny Bench, Rose's teammate for a good part of, his career, was asked about, he said, when I got in the Hall of Fame, the first thing they said to me was, Johnny, congratulations. The second thing they said to me was, do you think Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame? You don't want to answer that. It's their day, these guys. I was thinking about Belichick the other day. If I'm Bill Belichick, I might say, don't vote for me next year. I don't want to go in for now. Maybe in the future, there are other deserving guys. If I couldn't go in the first year, don't vote for me, guys. I mean, do me that favor, leave me out, and I'll go in another time. Because listen, Belichick doesn't need a plaque in Canton. Everyone knows he's a Hall of Famer. Does he really need a plaque there? I mean,
well, no, but it's nice, and he'd look like a spoiled little baby if he said, "Don't vote for me now." I still have Harry Carson. I still remember Harry Carson saying, "I'm never going." But he went.
But
when he
Harry
got in.
Carson wasn't clear cut. I can argue Harry Carson was a Hall of Famer.
It's a bad look. Doesn't matter who you are. It's a bad look to say, if you can't get in now, don't put me in at all.
No, listen, Keith, there's a difference involved. If Lawrence Taylor didn't get in this first year that he was eligible, that's a fiasco, because Lawrence Taylor was a great player, one of the best ever. Lawrence Taylor is a clear-cut Hall of Famer without a shadow of a doubt. Harry Carson was not that. Harry Carson is a fringe Hall of Famer. He happened to get in. It could go either way, a Harry Carson vote. I mean, if I didn't vote for Lawrence Taylor and I had a vote, I should be heavily criticized and have my vote taken away. But if I don't vote for Harry Carson, it's very arguable.
That's all fair, but again, you don't think it's a bad look for Harry Carson or anybody else to say, if I can't, you're not putting me in now, don't put me in at all.
Harry Carson, it was a terrible look for Lawrence Taylor. Someone like that, it wouldn't have been nearly as bad a look.
I think it's a bad look for anybody.
That's funny what Brian, points out about Hall of Fame tiers. You know what I used to think to myself? I proposed something in the sport of boxing to have a super Hall of Fame, meaning, Keith, one boxer in the history of the sport, every year, one guy goes in. That means after 10 years, you only have 10 fighters in there. After 20 years, 20 fighters, like that. And that tradition should be continued by future generations, because there's quite a difference between the all-time great players and the guys who just barely sneak into the Hall of Fame. There's a big difference in class. There really is. This isn't all Hall of Fames. I mean, how do you compare baseball Paul Molitor to Babe Ruth.
Well,
You know,
even worse.
Yeah, I mean, how
Bill
do you make,
Mazeroski or Phil Rizzuto.
yeah,
Babe Ruth.
yeah, you compare those guys to Hank Aaron. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a comparison.
And that's not a
I
knock
mean,
on those guys. It's just it's ridiculous to compare them. I agree. It's ridiculous to compare the best with the guys who just
and
got in.
some guys are such clear-cut Hall of Famers, Keith, that getting in the Hall of Fame is a big honor, but it's not the greatest thrill. Tom Brady, for example, when's Brady going to be eligible? In a couple of years?
He's been out two, so like
okay,
3 more years, 2 more years, 2 more years.
You just got me thinking. Let's hold off Belichick and Kraft and put them in with Brady together. The three.
That'd be nice. What's wrong with that?
No, Belichick said that. I want to go in with Tom Brady. Hold off on voting for me. I want to go in with Tom. That would make him look good.
It would make him look
that
very
would
good.
Actually make him look good, and Brady wouldn't mind that.
I don't think he would either.
But I think Belichick has total contempt for Robert Kraft right now. So if the two of them go in together next year, that would create an awkward situation, perhaps.
Is there a guy you're looking forward to seeing their speech this weekend? Really, they're on the edge of your seat. I am, because Adam Vinatieri, because of obviously my ties to the Patriots, but he'll get asked that Belichick question too. So.
Exactly. I mean, but there's a little bit of a difference involved with Vinatieri because he's tied to Belichick. Belichick was his coach, so he wouldn't mind talking about Belichick in a sense because that was his coach. But if Belichick wasn't a player's coach, who gives a darn? They don't want to ask that. A guy like Roger Craig. I mean, what's he going to be asked about? I mean, is anyone going to bring up the fumble, how that affected him?
Probably not enough guys will remember Roger Craig, unfortunately. Really good player. He's not a great player, though, right? Roger Craig's a great example.
Really, really good.
Really good, yes. But
good.
You can't compare him to Jim Brown.
No, right? No. But the problem is, you want A+ running backs to get into the Hall of Fame, and Roger Craig is an A- running back. It's just a little short. When you talk about great running backs, like you think of Barry Sanders and guys like that. Roger Craig's not on that level. So Hall of Fame tiers wouldn't be done the right way, unfortunately.
Well, Roger Craig's a guy who benefits from playing on a bunch of Super Bowl champions, too. If Roger Craig played his whole career in Detroit, sorry, Brian, he wouldn't have won. He wouldn't have got in.
That's okay. That all factors into it.
I agree. It should, for sure. Anything else in football standing out? We did have some big signings this week. Running backs are getting some respect. I don't even have to dive into individual cases.
Oh, they're really getting the full respect. They're getting a little more respect. But they're still underpaid. If an offensive lineman is getting more than the best running back in the NFL, something is wrong. What's more important, an elite running back like Robinson or Gibbs, or an elite receiver like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson? Who's more important? That's debatable.
Well, obviously NFL teams think it's the wide receiver because they pay the receivers and figure they can plug in. And some guys think they can plug anybody in the backfield. We know that's not true because some of these teams that aren't any good don't have good running backs. And that's part of why you can't throw the football. You still got to run the football. So I think
your running backs are, they block too. And a great running back who's hard to bring down, he wears down a defense as well. That doesn't show up in the stats. But you run the ball enough time, you're wearing down the defense, and also you're keeping them on their heels because they've become so obsessed with stopping the run that they have a little less of a pass rush.
And good teams are able to finish out games by running the football. The Patriots, all those years, they're throwing the ball like crazy that second half of their dynasty, but they still ran the football to end games when they were ahead.
Patriots had
not throwing bad interceptions.
They had very few elite receivers. Now, they had Randy Moss. Obviously, he's one of the best ever. For the three seasons they had him. They had Julius Edelman, wonderful receiver. He's not a Hall of Fame in my view.
I don't think so either.
Right, but he's a guy who deserves to at least have his name brought up in discussion.
He'll probably get there because of his postseason.
He might get there, yeah. And they had arguably, the greatest tight end, Evan Rob Gronkowski. And I'm not looking for debate between him and Travis Kelce, Kittle, John Mackey, Mike Ditka, and all those guys, Gates, et cetera.
Listen, they didn't have great running backs all those years either, but they ran the ball when they had to. That was a key, right? I mean, Curtis Martin, that goes back before the dynasty.
But it was interesting. Robinson and Gibbs, apparently friends. They would speak on the phone. And the way these agents think, usually, they don't want their guy to be the first one to sign because the second guy who signs is going to get a token amount more.
Yeah.
Token amount more. Yeah. This way the agent could brag and the player could feel, I'm the highest paid running back in the history of football. It sounds good. You kind of set the bar. But Robinson and Gibbs would be talking, and apparently Robinson told his agent, make me the highest now. If I get passed a little bit by Gibbs, it's okay. So Gibbs and Robinson would be interacting on the phone. They were apparently they're friends, and they would be discussing it. It's like, Keith, you and I mean, you'd want me to sign my contract first so you could get a token amount more than I would be getting.
I'm still trying to get anywhere.
Bragging about it.
I'm trying to get anywhere near as much as you. You're the guy dragging the network down because you're getting paid too much money. We got to lop off the top.
That's what happens when you have a guaranteed contract. B of A, for example, guaranteed contract. Listen, that's a good segue with the Buccaneers quickly.
Yeah.
The one thing that bothers me why I support players and contracts, if the contract is not guaranteed, as far as I'm concerned, it's not valid. It doesn't mean anything. It's not guaranteed. Why should Vita Vey go to training camp and participate if he gets injured? If he blows out his knee, he doesn't get a penny. He gets cut. They don't pay him.
It's different than baseball, I agree, but you still have a contract. You put your name to the paper. You need to honor your contract.
For the dollar amount. I agree for the dollar amount. $17 million a year. He's vastly underpaid, by about 50% approximately, okay? But I still feel you got to play for what you signed for as long as you're getting that amount, that you're getting at least the guaranteed money. So what the Buccaneers should just do with Vita Vey, say, we're guaranteeing you $17 million. We're not renegotiating. We're not doing anything this year. You're getting your $17 million. Now come out there and play, or guarantee $10 million of the $17 million. Do that compromise, and that's a motivation for him to stay on the field for the other $7 million. Plus, this next year's contract.
Well,
players don't realize in the NFL they don't got leverage. They don't have leverage at all in a lot of cases because if you don't perform, then you're not going to get a good contract the following year. One off year in the NFL, but especially by an older player, they look at it like they're not the same. Aaron Donald's contract with the Rams, it looks at this moment, nothing's definite, like Aaron Donald is going to make a comeback. Okay? He's not going to be getting paid $40 million a year. But had he not laid off the couple of years, Aaron Donald would be one of the highest paid defensive ends. But he's not going to be that now because he's coming off the
defensive lineman. He'd be the highest paid if he was still playing.
But the bottom line is he's only going to get a fraction of that now. So Aaron Donald's probably going to get maybe 10 million, some incentives to get him up to 18. I'm just guessing here, estimating. but he's coming back for love of game.
I'm going to give you a chance to get on my buddy Chris, because he's going to talk about, as a Canadian, he says we're well into the season up there in the Canadian Football League, and all we're talking about is the NFL, because nobody cares about the CFL here.
Wait, Chris. This is Chris.
Chris, that's Chris. Yeah, Chris F.
Chris. Believe it or not, and I've been a little guilty of this. Like, I go to the guide, the channel guide. A lot of times it's going to be the evening, because certain sports or whatever's on TV, and I don't want to miss it. I know what I want to watch. If the Yankee game is on, I want to watch the Yankees or whatever. And I come across, the Canadian Football League, and the guide says live. But the problem is the competition, Chris, if what it's up against at that moment. Like I said, if the Yankees are playing, especially Yankee Stadium, am I really going to watch the Canadian Football League instead? Realistically, I'm not going to do that. Or there could be another high-profile sporting event on. So realistically, I'm not going to watch the Canadian Football League game. And I'm talking about as an American, unless you're a fan of the Canadian Football League. There's some good players in the Canadian Football League. They widen the field. It's entertaining.
But until they market here, they're never going to get an audience.
You know what I wanted to see, what I would have loved to have seen, and this would have drawn good ratings. You take the United Football League's champions, and you play them against the Canadian Football League champions. We would be interested in that game. And the funny thing about it, a matchup like that, I may have watched instead of the Yankee game. I probably would have, because it would have been intriguing to see the best of the two leagues go against one another.
I don't know. I used to watch CFL a little bit more than I do now. There used to be more NFL players that would go up there and play. Fred Biletnikoff played up there. Vince Ferragamo played up there.
His reputation.
Warren Moon made his reputation. And by the way, one of the other problems I have is the Edmonton Eskimos aren't the Edmonton Eskimos anymore. They're the Edmonton Elks, and we can guess why they changed their name. So another reason.
I didn't know you were an Eskimo fan.
I love the Edmonton Eskimos. When Warren Moon was there, I was a big fan of the CFL at that time. But
well, the Canadian, and also, Chris, the Canadian Football League is thought of as being a little bit of a minor league operation. For example, you take a player like Shedeur Sanders, when they didn't know whether he was going to stick with the Browns, the thought was maybe go to the Canadian League and prove yourself there and then come back. Look, if a Johnny Manziel wanted to make a comeback, let's say hypothetically.
He's built for the CFL.
No, hypothetically. He's not going to be invited to any NFL camp, but I bet the Canadian team is going to invite him to camp and maybe feel he's going to sell a few tickets. And if all of a sudden he can play really well in the Canadian League, maybe an NFL team then gives him a look and invites him to camp the following year. So players NFL players who were rejected by NFL teams look at the Canadian League as a possible option of getting back to the NFL.
His game was built for the CFL. He could have been a big star there. But again, I think ego wouldn't let him go. So anyway, I don't mean to demean the CFL, Chris. I really don't. I just have a little problem with the Eskimos not being the Eskimos anymore. Let's transition over to baseball, because we do want to talk about the Red Sox. I doubt Bob's still with us, but the Red Sox have won 8 in a row again after winning 15 in a row not too long ago. When they lose 2 games in between,
they are insane.
They are playing unbelievable baseball. They pulled away a little bit in the wild card race right behind the Yankees, moving up in the division. And again, this probably won't last, as you talked about earlier, but they're not going to win 23 out of every 25 games, but this is a good baseball team. There's enough of a body of work here now to say this is one of the better teams in the AL.
Oh, yeah, no. They're going to make the playoffs, and they're a good team, and they're a threat in the playoffs.
And they're going to be a threat.
They remind me a little bit, and I wasn't born at the time of the 1951 a New York Giants baseball team, okay, who caught the Dodgers. The Dodgers had, a 13-and-a-half game lead in the summer, And then for the rest of the season, the Giants went like 37-7. Okay, in the next 44 games, they just kept winning, and winning. They had like around an 800 winning percentage, and eventually the two teams wound up in a tie. And then they had the 3-game playoff, in which the Giants won in 3 games on Bobby Thompson's famous walk-off homer. And then the Giants, the next day, won Game 1 of the World Series against the Yankees, but then predictably cooled off. I shouldn't say predictably. And the Yankees won that 51 series in 6 games.
Right.
But the Red Sox are going to cool off at a certain point. But the key thing is, after they cool off, do they get it back together and then they playing this way come playoff time? Because I'm going to tell you, Keith, if the playoffs began, let's say a month ago, and the Red Sox were in the playoffs and they were playing this way, the Red Sox would be World Series champions. It depends when the games are played.
Agreed.
No one was going to stop the Red Sox the way they're playing now. I mean, just like you mentioned, I think it was early in the show or before the show, we were talking, the Dodgers have lost 6 in a row. This isn't going to continue for the Dodgers, maybe a while longer, but now, come playoff time, Dodgers probably will have it back together. Can they be beat? I don't think they'll be beat, but of course they can be beat. So right now the Red Sox are phenomenal, but I've seen it happen too much, Keith. Teams that are on an incredible run, they cool off. The Seattle Mariners won 116 games in 2001. 116 games. So they were as good as this Red Sox team was going. And then the playoffs come around. They lose game 1 to Cleveland. And they had to struggle to win best of 5. They're beating the Indians 3-2. And then the Yankees beat them 4 out of 5. The teams cool off.
And get hot. And it's a matter of timing, as you said. I mean, there's no given. This is my argument about the Dodgers. They almost lost last year. They didn't lose ultimately, but they were close to losing. The year before, they were down to the Padres in the playoffs, 2-1. This team's not a given. They're the favorite to win.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're going to win. The teams with the highest, the Brewers have the best record in baseball. They got the 19th highest payroll. You don't need to have the highest payroll.
But we hear about teams being built for the playoffs. And if you look at the Dodger starting 5, their rotation, now that they got Skubal with Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Snell.
Well, there's no guarantee those 2 guys pitch.
If these guys are in form come playoff time, it's going to be mighty tough to win a series against them. It really will.
It should be tough, number one. It should be tough to win. And they got Edwin
Diaz in the bullpen. But they can be beat. Listen, all these teams can be beat. The Dodgers, even the year before that, came closer to losing the World Series to the Yankees than anyone talks about. All they see is the Dodgers winning 5 games. But 2 of those games, the Yankees came 1 out away from beating the Dodgers in the opener of that series, and then they gave up the Freeman homer. And in the other game, 3 mistakes in 1 inning. If the Yankees make just 2 of the mistakes, not 3, they escape that inning with a 5-run lead instead of giving up 5 runs. Cole doesn't cover the base. Volpe's throw is a little errant, and Aaron Judge miraculously drops an easy pop-up, which might be the only ball he drops in his whole career.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's a game of inches, and there isn't much to tip the scales. So that tips the scales, and momentum takes over. That's what happens.
Yeah, how a team is playing, absolutely. It changes. Look, if the Red Sox could play like this all year, I mean, they have a record of 148-14. That's a lot. For real, that's not logical that you could keep it going like that.
Right. No, I agree. But again, there are risks to a team like the Yankees now in the playoffs because the Yankees are playing, again, bad baseball. They are not scoring runs at all.
They're not playing. They're playing mediocre, average baseball. And the problem is the Red Sox have been beyond incredible. That's why the gap is closed. I mean,
Well, they're like a game under 500 since
but
Aaron Judge got hurt.
The Yankees' problem is this basically. Like they got to get Judge back. They got to get Bellinger back. You know, Rondon comes back, another starter, and they'll be okay. The personnel is there for the Yankees. They have the personnel.
The personnel is all hurt, Jack. That's any good, and there's no guarantee.
But what can you do about it?
You can't. But you can't overlook the fact that they're hurt, and they are not going to be competitive in the playoffs with this lineup that they're throwing out there now.
Not at this moment.
Hold on. There's no reason I should think Aaron Judge is going to come back and be a factor. None. What reason should I have to think Aaron Judge is going to be a factor?
Question mark, Keith. It's a major question mark. We don't know. We can't say with confidence that Aaron Judge is going to come back. It's 50-50.
I think he will come back, but how effective will he be?
If he comes back early enough, meaning the beginning of September, it'll give him the month to work out the kinks and get into form. And then if the Yankees in the playoffs, which even you will acknowledge they probably will be one way or another, that they won't fall out of the 3 slots.
Because the team's fighting for the 3rd spot are so bad.
But if everyone is healthy on the Yankees come playoff time, they're, logically they're the favorites in the American League. Because you just look at their starting pitching itself, the 4 starters that they're going to throw out every series, and their middle relief is going to be pretty good to have guys like Warren, and long relief.
Yeah, they're not the favorite without Judge and Bellinger being 100%, which is very unlikely, by the way. They're not going to be 100%.
And Stanton's another bat if he comes back and goes on a tear. But I don't know how they're going to fit in all these players. But, we'll see.
Somebody's going to have to
Right now, they're mediocre. They're very average right now. Very average, but
it's very disappointing because, again, you talk about this lineup, and it's very disappointing to see guys like Jazz and Chisholm just stinking it up again for the last 3 weeks, both of them.
But then again, you take a look and you see the 30 stolen bases. He gives you an element of small ball. You're not going to get anywhere else. Keith,
he doesn't get on base enough.
Yeah, listen, I agree, Chaz. We were hoping he'd do a little better, but he still can. He still can.
I mean, you got 3/4 of the season gone, and it's a pretty good.
What do you want to do, Keith? What do you want to do? Get rid of him?
No, I don't. I want him to play better. I want somebody to step up.
But all teams have that problem.
Other than pitchers, who stepped up on this team when Judge went out? Bellinger stepped up a little bit, but now he's out.
Look, initially they all stepped up. Goldschmidt was outstanding for a while. He surprised the heck out of me, and then he started showing his age again.
And they still played under 500 since Judge has been out. Nobody stepped up enough. Nobody.
Well, the first couple of weeks they did.
The first couple of weeks. So the season's longer than a couple of weeks. You're not revealing anything. A team without Aaron Judge is not likely to be as good. I agree, and we didn't do anything to fill that hole.
Look at the Seattle Mariners last year. The guy who went neck and neck with Judge for the MVP award, Cal Raleigh. The Mariners have been a big, one of the biggest disappointments. Now, I could point to the Yankees and say, are the Yankees one of the biggest disappointments in baseball? And I could say statistically, Keith, at this moment today, they have the 2nd best record in the American League, barely ahead of the Red Sox. But statistically, that how much of a disappointment can they be if you have your 2nd best record? But then you look at the Mariners in an awful division, which they might not win, and some people, including you, actually picked the Mariners to win the World Series.
I did.
So they're bigger disappointment than the Yankees, and I don't think the Yankees.
I agree.
I don't think the Yankees have been a big disappointment. They've had these injuries. I mean, we were hoping they would play better. We were hoping they'd play better. So you could say they've been a mild disappointment, mild, but that's about it.
I could say they're a disappointment because, again, the team is never deep enough to withstand these injuries. That's the problem. Again, you don't lose an Aaron Judge and replace him, but you need somebody to step in and step up, and that doesn't happen on this team, except for the pitchers.
Guys are
the pitchers
overrated.
have all stepped up.
Like Grisham gets some big hits. I got to give him his due. He gets hits in big situations a lot of the time, it seems, but his overall performance isn't what you want of an everyday center fielder.
He's like one for his last 35.
Last year it was, but but he hasn't had a 1-year contract this year. So next year moves are going to be made. And
yeah, he's not going to be here next year, that's for sure, I would say. Listen, I want to bring up something else too, because you mentioned Babe Ruth earlier. Peter Crow Armstrong said this week that he didn't think Babe Ruth even really existed, and if he did, he's only had the numbers he had because guys were basically throwing underhand to him. And I got a big problem with players today not respecting the people who came before them, because guess what? Without Babe Ruth, there is no Peter Crow Armstrong, and there's no Major League Baseball the way we know it today. And these guys ought to have a little respect for history. And
no, Keith, let's not get carried away. I heard that same. You're getting carried away here.
I'm not getting carried away. He's carried away.
I heard that same nonsense where people would say, "Oh, Bird and Magic saved the NBA. There'd be no NBA the way we know it today if it wasn't for Bird and Magic Johnson." That's not true.
You think
it's not true? They were great at the time. At the time, they elevated the NBA. They elevated it tremendously. Kudos to them for what they meant to the league. Kudos to Babe Ruth for what he meant to baseball. But baseball wasn't going to be non-existent if there was no Babe Ruth.
Jack, you were there then during the 1919 Black Sox scandal. You were there. I know you were there because I remember seeing you in 8 Men Out. I saw you there.
I was in the stands hiding.
You were. But so again, baseball was in serious jeopardy. And I think this is an opinion I've had forever, that every athlete in sports who's making gazillion dollars today owes a debt of gratitude to Babe Ruth. Because Babe Ruth was the first big star in sports and nationwide.
Wait. Do you think LeBron James owns the debt of gratitude to Babe Ruth?
Every single athlete making a bunch of money tonight.
I'm going to go a step further. Wait a second. I'm going to say Babe Ruth owns a big debt of gratitude to Jack Dempsey.
I knew you were going to go to boxing. That's why I set this up.
Won the World Heavyweight Championship in 1919. Before Babe Ruth made his mark as likely before Babe Ruth made his mark as a legendary player. Jack Dempsey got paid a lot more money than Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth came up with his famous line. What did he get? Like $80,000, and they said, "You got paid more than the president of the United States."
He had a better year.
Well, I had a better year. Well, Jack Dempsey would get a few $100,000 a fight. I mean, when Gene Tunney beat Jack Dempsey for the heavyweight title in 1926, when they had a rematch in 1927, Tunney got paid $990,000, $10,000 short of $1 million. And no baseball player came anywhere remotely close to that. Am I going to say, he got it because of Babe Ruth? Babe couldn't get that for himself.
I brought this up just so you could bring up the boxing. I knew you would. That's why I went there, so you could give your sport a pat on the back. Give the sport a pat on the back. But I think these guys don't know their history and respect their history enough. I'm sorry.
Listen, I agree with that. To a large extent, these guys don't understand so on. But what did he say bad about Babe Ruth? I don't get it.
He basically said, first of all, he said he didn't believe he really existed, that he was made up. And then he said, well, even if he did exist, he had guys basically throwing underhand to him, and that's why he hit all those home runs. That's what he said.
Well, but think of this. How many pitches then? you didn't have a radar gun. You don't know how hard they were throwing through in the mid 90s. Did anyone throw in the mid 90s? But then again, Babe Ruth did things at that time that other players couldn't do. He was in a league of his own. He was
He
so
out-homered the whole league, Jack. He out-homered the whole
virtually
league.
everyone else. That's a telltale sign in itself.
And let's not forget, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball before he became the best hitter. So, Ohtani, you can talk to me about Ohtani all you want. Babe Ruth is still better. Still better.
Well, Ohtani, some people are going to take a little offense to this, but Ohtani is slightly overrated. Slightly. Because he does not play the field.
Agreed.
He does not. Babe Ruth played the field when he was an everyday player. Ohtani is an everyday player as a DH, and then he pitches the way Babe Ruth pitched for a while. But then again, Babe Ruth didn't really pitch for the Yankees, for a while. He predominantly pitched, I believe, for the Red Sox. So, Ohtani, doesn't play the field. Bottom line, if he played the field more some of the time, I would look at his greatness being even more elevated than it is.
By the way, one of the comments that Peter Crow Armstrong made to back up his comments that he didn't think Babe Ruth ever existed. He said nobody's alive.
That's fantasy land. That's
he also
silly.
said no because he said nobody's alive who ever saw him play, and Jack's here to refute that as well. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting.
That's foolish. That's foolishness. That's being ignorant. If he meant it at face value,
he may have been just
using it as a figure of speech. Whatever.
He's a fine player and a guy I'd like to root for, and this type of thing makes it impossible for me to root for guys like that because they don't understand the history of their own sport.
Wait. He's a Chicago Cub.
Yeah, I'd want to root for him.
Why would you be rooting for the Chicago Cubs?
I'm not rooting for Cubs.
The Cubs. I thought you're a Yankee fan. I don't get it.
As an
you want to
individual,
root for the Chicago Cubs. So
I don't want to root for the Cubs.
About them.
I only root for one team. I'm not like the rest of you guys who jump bandwagon jumper.
I got a confession. I root for Cody Clemens because he's Roger Clemens' boy.
Individual guys
and
I'd like to see do well.
I'm a Yankee, and so I want Cody Clemens' boy Roger Clemens' boy to do well. But I'm not a Twin fan. I don't root for the Twins. But I'd like to see Cody Clemens do well. But what's your link? You want to root for this guy?
There are some guys, Jack, there are some guys you want to see do well because you think they're good guys and they get it. I thought Pete Crow Armstrong was one of those guys, and I don't think so. And I also root for Cody Clemens, too, by the way. And I'm not a Twins fan or a Cubs fan. I'm not like you guys who jump around a bandwagon all over the place. Any team in New York I'll root for. No, I won't. Only my team. That's it. My team. Anyway, Jack, any boxing news? I saw some news in boxing this morning. Parker, there was some news about Parker.
Yeah, Joseph Parker failed a drug test when he got stopped a year ago by Fabio Wardley, and supposedly they're going to lift that. And I'm tired of the whole thing. Anytime an athlete in any sport gets caught, the closest that they're going to admit to it would be, well, I didn't knowingly take it. I didn't knowingly. It reminds me, Keith, I was once on the Parkway, and there was one guy asking for money, motorists, and traffic was stalled, and he was holding up a sign, and he says, he had his cup out, he wanted money. He says, why lie? All I want is a cold beer. And people were giving the guy money because they were laughing that this guy, and the guy was smiling, had a sense of humor. Like, why lie, as opposed to holding a sign, hungry, this and that. Even though I'm compassionate for people, who do that, I really am compassionate. I'm not poking fun, but I'm just saying there's a certain, there's a certain feeling I would get that if an athlete ever came clean and said, look, I knowingly took it because I thought it would give me an edge. I thought I could win. I got caught, and I'm willing to take my responsibility. It's the same thing, Keith, with pitches. You throw and you hit a bat on purpose. If you admit it, you get in bigger trouble. So everyone denies it.
Boy, that brings up a thing I got to talk about that next. We got to talk about this new Met
So
pitcher.
I didn't realize time ran out on us.
Yeah. But anyway, he blamed it on his nutritionist. That's a new one. His nutritionist was putting cocaine in his food. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway, Jack will be on tomorrow with the debate show. Check Jack out and Brian and J Train tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. I'll be back on Sunday with the Stream of Consciousness. And we'll see you Monday morning with lots more of this scintillating conversation. Guys, have a great weekend. Bye-bye. Come on. Play.